whisper. Some people wear a mask their entire lives. And the terrifying part? You never see it coming. This is a true story. The world is a strange place. A few years ago, I worked as a private investigator. Not the glamorous kind you see in movies. The real kind. The kind who sits in a parked car for hours, watching, waiting, documenting things people would rather keep hidden. Most of what I uncovered was ordinary, but one case never left me. To protect her privacy, I'll call her Sue. She was sharp, confident, a self-made woman who had built her own business from nothing. Investors believed in her. Friends believed in her. And one of those friends was a man named Steve. Steve was the kind of man who filled up a room. He drove a Corvette. He dressed like success. He was always the first to reach for his wallet. Wherever Sue went, Steve was there, listening to her dreams, offering her money she kept refusing. For months, she said no. Then, one day, she said yes. That was the moment everything changed. The moment Sue accepted Steve's investment, he became a different person entirely. The calls started immediately, not just during the day, all hours, every hour, every day. She saved the messages. I eventually saw them myself. Hundreds, thousands. A relentless flood of words from a man who had decided that his money bought him something more than a share of a business. It bought him her. Sue was afraid to change her number, afraid to go to the police. She had taken his money. She felt trapped by it. And then, things got darker. Whenever she went out on a date, Steve was there, following, watching, appearing from the shadows. One night, at a bar, a man she was seeing put his arm around her shoulder. Steve walked up from behind and hit him. The man fell unconscious, and somehow, no charges were ever filed. Sue was trapped in a prison with no walls. She couldn't date. She couldn't sleep. She couldn't breathe without wondering, is he out there right now? Late at night, she would hear footsteps outside her bedroom window. She would see his red pickup truck everywhere she went. Every corner she turned, she expected to find him there, watching. And then, he vanished. No phone calls, no red truck, no footsteps in the dark, just silence. Slowly, Sue's life returned to something resembling normal. She started over, built something new, moved into a new home, and for the first time in a long time, she thought it was over. Years passed. Sue decided she wanted to repay every dollar Steve had ever given her. She tried to find him. His phone was disconnected. His social media, gone. The bar where they met, no one had seen him in years. It was as if he had simply ceased to exist. She decided to let it go. And then, there was a knock at her front door. Late at night. She looked through the window, a tall figure, a hood pulled over its face. Her gut told her who it was before her mind could catch up. She didn't open the door. She didn't move. The figure stood there for nearly 20 minutes, then slowly walked away into the dark. The next day, Sue called me. She told me everything, from the beginning, to Steve's disappearance, to the figure at her door. She didn't want revenge. She didn't want drama. She just wanted to pay back the money and finally be free. What I discovered during my investigation was disturbing. The man's real name wasn't Steve. I couldn't trace where his money had come from. What I could find was a pattern. Different towns, different names, different women. He'd find them, charm them, give them something they needed, and then he'd own them. But every trail went cold. The last record of him, anywhere, matched the last day he contacted Sue, 2 years earlier. All his aliases, silent. All his addresses, abandoned. It was as if he had simply dissolved. Then the figure returned. Sue called me the moment she saw it outside her window. By the time I arrived, he was gone. For the next several nights, I waited in the dark outside her home, watching, the way he had once watched her. At exactly 2 a.m., he came back. He knocked on her door. I stepped out of my car and moved toward him. The moment he saw me, he ran. He was fast. I chased him into the woods behind her property. The trees closed in around me, and then I lost him. The following morning, I went back. Into the woods, deeper this time. And there, hidden among the trees, I found it. A small shed, barely visible from any angle, built for one purpose. I approached the door slowly, opened it. The smell hit me like a wall. The smell of someone who had been living there for a very, very long time. Inside, food wrappers, empty cans, the remnants of weeks, maybe months, of a life lived in hiding. But that wasn't the worst part. In the center of the room was a wheelchair. And sitting in that wheelchair was a mannequin. Its head had been damaged and repaired. Its face was covered in makeup. A blonde wig had been placed on top. And in its lap was a photograph. Steve and Sue, from the days when she used to serve him drinks and tell him about her dreams. The mannequin had been made to look like her. I called the police. I gave them my location, and we waited. He came back to the shed. He always came back. As officers watched from the tree line, the hooded figure sat down beside the mannequin and began talking to it. The police knocked on the door. The man inside exploded. He fought. He raged. He screamed. But he was subdued. And when they pulled back the hood, it was Steve. No one knew how long he had been living in those woods. No one knew what he had been planning. We never discovered where he had gone during those missing years. We never found out what had happened to all his money. The man they arrested in that shed was barely recognizable as the polished, charming figure Sue had once known. He was a shell, an echo of something that had hollowed itself out from the inside. I don't know if Sue ever fully recovered. I'm not sure anyone would. But I think about this case often. Not because of how it ended, but because of how it started. With a smile, a Corvette, a generous hand reaching for a wallet, the friendliest face in the room. Sometimes the most dangerous people in your life aren't strangers. They're the ones who had your trust before they showed you who they really were.